Hello, my wonderful community. Thank you for being here in another video. And today we're going to talk about the million-dollar question, why? Why did they choose to leave? Why did they choose to die? It's a very heartbreaking question. It's a question that as researchers find out more information about suicide, more information about brain functioning and mental health, we will come up with the variety of reasons why. But I wanted to share with you some of these questions that some of you might be having, because sometimes these questions lead to rumination, thinking things over and over. Sometimes these questions lead us to feeling guilty, feeling shame, feeling the stigma, closing ourselves out to support, silencing our own voices. So, the question of why do our loved ones make these choices? Now, if you would compare another illness or another disorder to suicide, if you were to say, why do people get cancer? Well, we can find different variables, and I'm not an expert in that, but you wouldn't question so much of the why. When people have different disorders or illnesses, we are more willing to accept the why is because they got sick. When it comes to mental health and brain health, we don't apply that same type of logic. So we question. A lot of that can be prevented if we see the brain as an organ who also can get sick, who can also dysfunction. There are different populations that are more at risk when it comes to suicide. And some of the ones that I've researched include veterans, teenagers, people battling addictions, people with medical conditions and pain, specifically physical pain, people that have depression, and people with certain diagnoses that make them more vulnerable. And there are some different factors. But the question why is very broad. And so because it is very broad, it can lead us into different directions in our thinking. And a lot of times this uncertainty of why they did it doesn't really leave us comfort. And what I see is that sometimes that question why it leads back to me, and it leads back to blame, and it leads back to blaming others, because sometimes the answer can be so complex and the answer is still being fulfilled partially by our researchers, partially by the information and the data that we have on these vulnerable populations, but we have not gotten to that point where we can specifically say, this is why, because the why is different for every person. Now, as somebody who has experienced suicide loss and as somebody who has researched this topic for several years and who has worked with patients who have these types of thoughts, I can tell you that there's so many reasons why, and sometimes people don't know why. And so we are torturing ourselves with this question. And unfortunately, the reason why we ask the why is because our brain is trying to make sense of it. It's trying to gain some kind of understanding that can lead us to controlling the story or the narrative of why this person died this way. But if I can give you the most simplest answer that I have found, it comes down to brain health. Our brain has the potential of getting sick just like any of our other organs. Unfortunately, a lot of times with mental health, there is still stigma surrounding the ability to go get help. And because of that stigma, sometimes people don't check in if they're having any kind of mental health challenges. Of course, there's other reasons, resources, the availability. We can name a whole lot of reasons. But what I have found within my research, within my practice, is that it comes down to brain health. When our brain gets sick, there are possibilities for this auto-destruct button that we all have. And although there are populations that are more vulnerable than others, we are all at risk for our brain getting sick. So, when you are questioning the reason why, and when you are trying to find a guilty person, or maybe you have found yourself to be guilty of the why, I want to challenge the way that you perceive this. I want to challenge you and to go back to the root. And the root is the brain. And the more understanding we have from a brain perspective and from a mental health perspective, the less we will ask this question of why. There are many reasons why. But, like I mentioned before, the reason, we can find it in the brain. And as science and technology expands, we will be able to understand more of this type of dysfunction of the brain. For now, I ask you to keep an open mind, to not loop in this question, to not find yourself being guilty of something you have no control over, because we cannot control life or death situations. And we certainly can't control what other people do and how they manage their life and the decisions of their life, including this one. I want to have compassion for the people who have been in this place where they question whether they should continue to live or not. I want to have so much compassion and so much understanding. And I want to do the same for my suicide loss survivors. And I invite you to stop torturing yourself with a question why. Even if you found a note, even if you found some clues, at the end of the day, it is our brain. And understanding that is crucial for our healing.